Hello, I'm Quinn Heath, the moderator for this event tonight. Welcome to this community outreach meeting on September 17th for Conception MA, a proposed marijuana cultivation establishment. This establishment is proposed to be located at 374 West Street, Uxbridge, Massachusetts, zip code 01569. We have with us representatives from Conception MA, including Blake Mensing. We'll open with a presentation on the proposed site, followed by an opportunity for public engagement if we have anyone join at that point. So with that, I'll turn it over to Blake.
Thanks very much, Quinn. As Quinn said, this is a community outreach meeting. This is intended to satisfy a Cannabis Control Commission regulation. So I'm going to be ticking through the regulatory topics in rapid succession. So the first matter is correct. Conception Mass MA Inc. Is the proposed applicant here. They will be applying for a Tier 11 cultivation license at 374 West Street, Uxbridge, Massachusetts, 01569. The first required topic has to do with maintaining the location securely. So the Cannabis Control Commission regulations at 935 CMR 500.110 go into excruciatingly painful detail on a granular level about every bell and whistle that the security system must contain. Commercial grade locks, camera coverage essentially in every square foot of the building that is not a bathroom, and a hierarchical system of who may access certain portions of the facility. Specifically, there are designated limited access areas where, as the name implies, people are limited by what rank they hold in the entity. So for instance, you wouldn't have your day one trimmer going into willy-nilly into the product vault. Similarly to the commercial grade locks, typically my clients employ either a key fob or a pin pad or even a biometric to note which employee entered which section of the facility at a particular time. The security camera coverage, as I outlined, has to cover every portion of inside the building, except the bathrooms and the outside curtilage to ensure and guard against trespassers and would-be thieves. The commission requires that the cameras have full 1080p, HD definition. You must store the camera footage for 90 days. Each frame of that camera footage must have an irremovable date, time, location watermark, if you will, so someone can pull that, try to identify the individual and find out where in the facility that image generated. That is a good segue, frankly, to the plans and steps taken by the marijuana establishment to prevent diversion to minors. The sort of biggest gatekeeping function of preventing diversion to minors, which in this context is anyone under 21 years of age, is that you may not work or enter the facility if you're not 21 years of age. And as an agent, marijuana establishment agent, you have to have a full background check and fingerprint, and again, be 21 years of older. There's a unique sort of situation here where a police officer is eligible to be sworn in as such before they're 21. Their badge would not trump state law. If you had a 20-year-old police officer show up, they would not be allowed in, no ifs, ands, or buts, despite that authority. And that's basically the list of people who may enter the facility are people who work there, people with a legitimate business purpose who have to sign into a visitor log, state inspectors, local inspectors, police, fire, etc. But yeah, this is not a public-facing entity. You may not, as Johnny off the street, walk in and get a tour. You have to have a reason to be there. Tours are allowed, but yeah, it's not just open season. Similarly, to prevent diversion to minors, there's a state seed to sale tracking requirement known as METRC, METRC. That assigns a unique alphanumeric code with a physical tag on the plant side that follows that plant as soon as they hit 8 inches or taller through the life cycle through the facility. So in the METRC, you see where each plant and product you might make from it down the road, if there was a manufacturing license, in each section of the facility. So you can follow that trail of breadcrumbs, and then you can also follow that same number that follows with it to the retail customers. So what I advise my clients is, if you're selling to a retail and you have a pattern of that getting into hands of basically young, people below 21, I have a clause that I put in some contracts that essentially says, once, okay, but fix it. But if this is becoming a pattern, we're not going to sell to someone who can't keep their products out of the hands of minors. So that's sort of the multifaceted approach to keep it out of, to prevent diversion to minors. The next required topic has to do with a plan by the marijuana establishment to positively impact the community. That has two components. One is a state level requirement with capital letters here, positive impact plan. That plan must have a goal, a metric by which you, a goal, a plan to achieve the goal, and a metric by which you measure your progress toward that. So that's intended to try to undo some of the wrongs of the failed drug war. The Massachusetts Cannabis Control Commission has identified 29 areas of disproportionate impact that essentially got more harshly enforced against than others. And all things equal, people of color and Caucasian people consume cannabis at virtually identical rates. They just have identified some zip codes where people got the short end of the stick on the drug war. So what I have done with multiple of my clients, including Conception MA Inc. here, is there is an intent to donate annually to a nonprofit group called the New England Veterans Alliance. As the name implies, the intended beneficiary of that nonprofit is veterans who happen to reside in one of those 29 areas of disproportionate impact. And what they do is a lot of sort of, I'd call it, vocational training, educational training on cultivation itself. The reason that's important for veterans is during the current state of federal prohibition, veterans can't be as open as they might have liked, even in states where it's legal, with respect to the Veterans Affairs system. So giving people the skills where it's legal to grow at home, I think is a way to help them in the short term and also give them skills that might be marketable and to get them employed in this industry, which is obviously booming here in Massachusetts. On the local front, the truly local front in Uxbridge, I do know that Gina and George and Tony are committed to giving back. So we're going to explore talks with folks in town, including town hall, to see where charitable dollars or volunteer hours might do the most good. So yeah, I would expect an exploration of a way to help veterans as well. So we'll likely reach out to the veterans agent to explore that. That's important to the group. And the last topic that we're required to cover under state law is information adequate to demonstrate that the location will not constitute a nuisance, as that term is defined by law. So yeah, long story short, any local permit, any state license, any host community agreement, none of those is a free pass to be a bad neighbor. So with a cultivation facility, of this scale, the really chief sort of potential nuisance would be odor. And the answer to why that is likely not to ever be an issue is because it's inherently in a cultivator's interest to keep the air heavily controlled in the grow environment. So if your facility is stinking up the neighborhood, that means air is escaping too freely. The first line of defense would be an activated charcoal carbon filter in the HVAC system. In addition, what happens typically is you do sort of grow rooms within a grow room. So we're going to have some multiple layers of filtration before it hits the outside air. And then again, just if air is getting out, that means air is getting in, which would invite mold, pests, pathogens, all sorts of things that would be hugely detrimental to cultivating this crop. So yeah, it's not a pass. You do have to be good neighbors. We are in an industrial area of Uxbridge. The neighbors, I think, are doing industrial things. Nonetheless, there's a state requirement to not cause a nuisance. And yeah, the odor control technologies employed, will be substantial and calculated to mitigate that odor to the maximum extent that's possible. So with that, we have covered every single topic that the state regulations require. So if anyone happens to have shown up while I was giving that outline, I will answer any and all questions they may have.
I can confirm we don't have anyone from the public on the call, so I'll conclude this community outreach meeting. Thanks and have a great night.